Hello and welcome to the Deaf Kiwi Diversity Series. My name's Nadia and this is my sign name. So at work you make certain things. What is it you make? Yeah, so we make bedroom furniture like beds, clothes drawers, bedside cabinets. Every now and then we'll make something a little bit different, like a coffee table or a dining room table, but that's not so common. Mostly we're making beds, actually. We sell beds and mattresses together. And how do you start the process of making a bed? What's the first step? What do you do? Right, well, when a customer comes into the showroom, they'll see a design or a style of bed that they like. We'll make a note of that. They'll choose a size, whether it's a king or a queen or a double, and they'll select the type of wood they would like, so potentially oak. After that, once they're happy, that order will be placed, and then that's something that we can follow to create the bed. So I'll go into the timber store area, and in this case, I would select lengths of oak. So what size are they? Well, about this big on the end, but big long lengths. And so I'll pull that out. Very heavy. Oak is quite a heavy wood. And so then I'll lug that over to the saw and I'll cut lengths according to the dimensions, just slightly bigger than what we need. So these bits of wood are put on a trolley and I'll take that over to a machine called a buzzer, which has 4 blades, which are all spinning. And that sits kind of between a gap between 2 little tables. And that's spinning, the 4 blades are spinning. And the piece of wood, which has a rough surface, is fed through this, and the buzzer removes that roughness and becomes nice and smooth. And then I'll take the wood over to another machine called a thicknesser. So that reduces the thickness? Yeah, it does, that's right. So you feed that through and the blades are on the top this time, and you can select the thickness. So maybe 32 millimeters, say. So there's a crank handle for setting the thickness. If I set that to 32 millimeters, I can send the wood through and it comes out at a perfect 32 millimeters thick. I can then take the wood over to the saw and cut the widths and the lengths according to the plan, and then take the wood over to a big belt sander, which is about 600 millimeters wide, and it has a conveyor for sending the wood through. So you place the wood on the conveyor and it sends it through and sands it smooth. Isn't that easy? Yeah, no hard work at all. And so the wood goes through automatically. And if it was 32 millimeters before, I might set it to end at 31 millimeters thick and then just send it through on both sides so that both sides are nice and smooth. And then after that, everything's assembled and screwed. And how do you assemble the bed? Well, with screws and biscuits that are put in with glue, and then that's clamped. And then when it's dry, then everything will be tidied up, make sure it's okay, and then we'll put some oil on it. And so the oil we use is a slightly unusual name. It's called Osmo. So that's made in Sweden, I think, but it's a beautiful oil. So there'll be 2 coats of oil. And then the manager will call a customer in and they'll take it home. Happy customer. Wow. And so beds are quite big, aren't they? Yeah, well, there's different sizes. Single, single, double, queen, king, super king. And the length will usually make to 2 meters long. That suits most people. Every now and then we'll make one 1.9 in length, but mostly it's 2 meters. Okay, wow. And in terms of assembling the bed, knowing which piece goes where, how do you know what to do, or is it nice and easy? It's pretty easy. It all slots in very nicely. You just tap it into place, put the slats in place. When it looks good, we'll roll the slats up and tie them up, and then take all the components of the bed out and put them in a flat pack form. They can be sent home with a customer and they can assemble the bed themselves. It's nice and easy. It just slots in. So you make the parts and then they actually make it. They set it up. They put it together. Yeah. Well, Peter, you really do have quite a few skills, carpentry and a whole heap of others as well. It's quite amazing. Now, anyway, I've just remembered someone said to me that you had a story that you were able to tell me. Oh, what story was that? The sort of the car alarm or something? Oh, yes. Wow. Years ago, actually, before I got married, I had 2 cars. So one was a bit bigger, and that was more for longer road trips. And I had a smaller car, a Mini, and I used that for getting to and from work. But anyway, I met a woman, and we got to know each other, and then we eventually got married. And she had her own car, and I had 2 cars, so that was 3 altogether. And anyway, the first year, we lived in a flat. It was in a block of 12 flats altogether. There were 3 across the front and the rest went back further on the section. So we were in flat number 3, and number 3 flat had a garage attached. So garage number 3, that's where my wife's car lived. And they were considering what to do with my cars. But in flat number 2, there was this old woman that didn't have a car, and she offered her garage up. And so my car could live in garage number 2. She actually said to us that in flat number 4, Peter and Julie lived there. And I thought, oh, isn't that funny? This old lady is a little bit confused because my name's Peter and my wife's Julie. And thought, what are the odds of number 3 and number 4 having 2 couples both with the same names? So anyway, it ended up that we met the couple from number 4, and I said, oh, what's your name? And he said, my name's Peter. And I thought, oh, same as me. Fancy that. And then his wife, Julie. And I thought, oh, same as you, Julie. And so Peter and Julie, just the same as us. The old woman was dead right. She wasn't losing her marbles at all. And so then we just had to decide where to keep my Mini. All the garages were full, and so we ended up having to park it on the road. But then I was a bit concerned about it getting stolen. So I decided to make an alarm. And so I came up with an idea. So you know how you have an interior light, which is activated by the car door opening. And that car had 3 air horns connected to the horn as well. It's quite a strong, powerful horn sound. And that was in under the bonnet near the engine. And so I decided to wire up the interior light circuit so that when you open the door, you had the opportunity to flick a little switch, and that would ensure that the alarm wouldn't go off. But if the switch was left on, when you open the door, the interior light circuit would activate and the alarm would go off. It would blare very loudly. Wow. Yeah, just a nice, easy, cheap way of wiring this up. And so the interior light circuit was connected to these air horns, and it was also connected to the bonnet. So if the bonnet opened, then the alarm would go off as well. And it worked very well. Every morning I would head off to work when my wife was asleep. She would get up later. So I'd come out to the car, and unlock it, open the door, make sure I'd flick that little switch, put my lunch in the passenger seat and put the belt on and head away to work. So I do that every morning, but then one morning I came out to the car, opened the door, I forgot to flick the little switch, and so this horn just went off. And me being deaf, I didn't realise. So I put my lunch on the passenger seat, put on my seatbelt. My wife was still in bed. My wife's hearing, of course. And she heard this horn blaring into the early morning. Everyone in the 12 flats all woke up because of this horn. And I had no idea. And so when I got in and shut the door, the horn stopped. I still had no idea what had happened. And then I realised I had a bit of extra time. So I thought I'd go into the petrol station. And first of all, I thought I'd check the tyre pressure in my tyres because I had plenty of time. So I opened the door and the alarm went off and I left the door open actually as I tested the air pressure, and everyone was looking at me and I thought they must just like my car, they like my Mini. So I filled up one tyre and then the next. Everyone was still looking at me. The horn was still blaring away, but I couldn't tell. So I did all the 4 tyres, then I got back in the car and drove over to the petrol pumps. And everyone was looking at me, and again I was thinking, they just like my car. So I opened the door, the horn went off again, then I closed it, went to fill up the petrol, and then I thought, actually, I need to check the oil. And so I opened the bonnet. Remember, the horn was connected to that as well. So I opened the bonnet and propped it up, and the horn was going off. Everyone was looking at me. I thought they really do like this car. So I pulled out the dipstick and checking the oil. The horn was blaring away, and then it was a bit dark in the bonnet, and so it was difficult for me to see the slot for the dipstick. So I leant right into the engine bay, and at that point I could hear faintly the horn going off, and suddenly felt the embarrassment, realising what had happened, ran inside, paid for my petrol, and then left. How embarrassing. And did your wife say anything to you? Well, yeah, when I got home after work, she said, hey, you forgot about your alarm in the car. I said, yeah, I did. And I told her about the checking the tyre pressure in the petrol station, and we had a good laugh. Great times, eh? You're really good with cars. You're pretty onto it, Peter. I had actually heard that story before today. Someone just briefly mentioned, I need to ask you about this story, but yeah, wow, that was the best. Yeah, well, I think it's going to go viral fairly soon after this podcast is released, isn't it? That story will be well known. I think there'll be a lot of laughter in the audience, I'm sure. And I'm sure a lot of people will identify with the story as well, with alarms going off in their home and just being oblivious. Or everyone evacuating and being the only one left and say, oh, sorry, I'm deaf. Yeah, I have a number of creative skills like welding, electrical, woodwork, and just the ability to come up with solutions to problems as well. You're a real handyman, aren't you, Peter? Yeah, well, you know that concept, number 8 wire. And so essentially being able to come up with creative solutions to problems. Yeah, wow. Just beautiful. And just the work that you do, your mechanical knowledge, your creative ideas like this, being able to set up an alarm like this as well, just amazing. I would never have even thought of anything like this. Yeah, but I just forgot that detail of flicking that little switch. Oh, just so funny. So since the age of 22, when I moved to Auckland until now, every now and then I've had deaf people asking me to make them different items of furniture, cupboards, coffee tables, that sort of thing. And for 3 years, I've had a business installing kitchens as well. I've probably done 10 kitchens over that time. Really enjoyable. And so when you're working on boats, well, they were yachts. Oh, thank you, Peter. When you were working on the yachts, there were 10 deaf people altogether, weren't there? Yeah, that's right. And were you all friends? Did you all know each other? Yeah, I knew them all. Did you go to school together? No, we were all different ages. We'd met up at Deaf Club and within the deaf community. But there was quite an age range, younger right through to much older. There were 4 deaf woodworkers in that team. 4 in the fiberglass department. There was one who was kind of putting together the different components of the boat, like the seat, the throttle, the window wipers, and one deaf person who was working in the upholstery area for all the upholstery needs in the yacht. And so altogether there were 10 deaf staff there. And so you were all working on the yacht. Would the deaf staff also catch up and socialise? Well, just morning tea and lunchtime, really. There was this big long table that all the deaf staff would congregate and sit around and we'd chat with each other and every now and then have a bit of a disagreement, but that sort of thing happens. What good times. You would have felt such a connection having deaf people to interact with as opposed to just being in a hearing environment. Yeah, there were 120 hearing people and then this table of deaf people telling stories to each other and every now and then have a bit of an argument, disagreement, but you get through that. It was really enjoyable. And so this was one of your best experiences, you think? Yeah, it was. If that factory hadn't have closed down, as it did in 2008 with the global financial crisis, if that hadn't have had closed down, then I think I'd still be working on yachts. The manager was just so good with deaf people. I just really liked it there. It's amazing. It's quite rare to see a hearing-run organisation employing so many deaf staff. It's really nice. And so what do you feel like you achieved there? What I achieved, I think there was a lot of learning. And so I've come out with a lot of skills, I suppose, that I wouldn't have had before. And so I was a bit apprehensive thinking of working on such big yachts, but being able to become familiar with those yachts and being able to become familiar with the designs and the process was quite an achievement. And so going through the first one, it was all learning. And then the second yacht, you were starting to get familiar. And then you just consolidated that learning as you went through that process again and again. And each individual staff member had their hours recorded on job cards. So there was one job card for each boat. And you could see how many hours you'd spent on each boat. So my supervisor called me over at one time and told me to have a look at my job cards. And you could see the time on the first boat was a certain amount, and each boat, it was getting smaller and smaller. And I thought, well, less is worse and more is good. And the supervisor said, no, you're getting faster and faster. You're saving time as you get better and better. The first time took you a wee while. That's okay. You were still learning, and you're just getting better and better and more efficient. And I thought, oh, that's great to hear. Oh, wow. And I suppose you're pretty good at focusing and just tuning out distractions? Yeah, I suppose so. I actually remember one time my supervisor came along. He was looking at the work I was doing, and he said something like this. And I was trying to lip read him. What was that? I thought he was saying, no good. That's what I thought as I was looking up at him. And I said, what are you saying? And he repeated himself. And then he wrote it down on a piece of paper, and I realized, oh no, he's saying so good. But it looked just the same, so good or no good. It's so easy to misunderstand that, isn't it? Yes, actually, he was really happy with my work. Never forget that. And so how did you feel working there? Well, it was a really good place to work, really good for deaf people. I really liked it. I actually remember the same supervisor. He was a big young guy, maybe 35 years old. I was maybe 45 or 50. He was big, strong, gruff sort of guy. And at that time, I had my own electric sander. I was the only one in the factory with my own sander. And it was a very noisy sander, but it was fine for me as a deaf person. And the supervisor came along one time and he was looking intently at what I was doing. And I said, what's up? And he did this gesture here. And he was meaning, this sander's sounding like a helicopter. He said, it's so noisy. It's just like a helicopter. Great gesturing. Isn't that nice? It's so lovely to see communication happen like that. So this is not a new boat. This was me and a friend of mine, another deaf guy, went halves in this second-hand boat. It was fairly cheap. Normally boats are quite expensive, but this friend knew I was pretty good at doing up boats. And so we bought this cheap boat and took it out to my father's farm and put it in the workshop there and pulled all the components out. Which components? Oh, like old seats and floorboards and anything that wasn't so good, we would then replace with new components. Okay, and so what components? Well, like we'd throw out the old seats and replace that with new ones. And so how did you remove all the components to leave the boat skeleton? Well, we just kind of pried it out and got rid of it, you know? Did that include wood? Did you fix up old wood as well? Yeah, if there was rotten wood, we'd get rid of that. How would you know it was rotten? Well, you kind of touch it. If it's soft, then you know it's no good. Get rid of it. And you just kind of test the rest of the wood. If it's nice and hard, that's okay. We got rid of the old seats and replaced that with new seats. Do you remember there was a deaf guy who worked in the Yacht factory who was into upholstery? So he made this blue, red and grey upholstery here. Well, that's really nice. It really stands out, doesn't it? Yeah. And then after that, we just sanded everything, made sure it was all nice and smooth. And then we got another deaf guy who didn't work with us in boats, but he worked as a car spray painter. And we asked him to spray paint the hull white. So you can see this nice stark white. And so it was completely made by deaf people, wasn't it? Yeah, the upholsterer, the two of us, the spray painter, all deaf. Do you still have the boat? No, we've sold it. Ah, that's a shame. It'd be lovely to see this boat fully made by deaf people. Yeah, and the motor as well. You can see here the outboard motor. Oh, yeah, those ones that churn the water up. And so the outboard was pretty old when we got it, but I sanded it up and repainted it blue and put the manufacturer's stickers on it, and it looked really nice. And so we would go out fishing with groups of deaf people all the time. There was actually one time, it was quite funny, you know, the portable petrol tanks that you plug into the outboard motor. So we had one of those, and there was 4 of us all deaf going on a fishing trip. And we were out cruising along at some pretty good speed, but then we'd just gradually slow down. We were losing power. I didn't want to panic the others, and so I just stopped. And I said to everyone, oh, this is a good spot. Put your lines down. And so they did. They started fishing. And I was trying to figure out what was going on with this motor. Why had we lost power? And I thought, I'll have a look at the petrol tank, but I know I filled it. But I had a look, and it had all sucked in on itself. I'd forgotten to release the little air pressure relief valve. You tighten it when you're transporting it to stop the fuel spilling, and I'd forgotten to open it again. And so as the motor was using petrol, the tank was just sucking in on itself. And so I undid it, and it opened up to its normal size again. The deaf guys had no idea what was happening. I just said to everyone, okay, it lines up, time to move. And off we went at a good speed again. And just wondering, did this boat have a name at all? I don't actually remember. I don't think it did. But anyway, when we were fishing, you had certain rules for the size of fish, and the fish we were catching were that big. And so you had to leave the heads on, and then you would leave them on until you came back to the beach, because every now and then there'd be a MAF officer there to check your catch. And so you had to leave the heads on. But this time we cut all the heads off and we gutted the fish and left them in the fish bin. We didn't expect the MAF officer to be there when we got back. And so when we got back, there was a MAF officer there, and he came along to inspect our catch. We thought, oh no. And so he asked for our catch so that he could inspect it. So we showed the fish bin, and he had a look and thought, oh, these look fairly small, and the heads had been cut off. He was chatting away to us. And then each of us were blaming the other one. You know what deaf people are like, always casting the blame. And this officer had a look at this conversation and then said, oh, look, okay, no, that's all right. You shouldn't have done this, and then walked off. So I think as deaf people, we got away with it. Yeah, we never got in trouble. Lucky, eh? Well, Peter, you've told us so much. Thank you for your stories and everything you've explained to us. It's been beautiful. It's been lovely to see examples of your woodwork and carpentry, your skills, boat building, your lovely stories of your upbringing and stories from work and everything. Thank you so much. It's been brilliant. Thank you, everyone, for watching. We hope you've enjoyed this series. High five.